Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So, this episode I'm calling Biden's Ethical Weakness Undermines the Political Prospects of Democrats and the Welfare of the American People. So, I have always looked at Joe Biden as being someone who has very weak and fungible ethics that are simply a political ploy of his to appear as if he's a nice guy and if he's a good guy, okay? And this is not unusual. So Biden is not an outlier within the Democratic Party elite. He's not so unusual in that. I mean, he's maybe extreme in certain regards, but it's not so extreme that he's essentially representative of the strategy that I've outlined for the last couple of years in my political writing and vlogging and so forth and so on. Um, this video cast about how the Democratic Party has created an identity in the neoliberal era of being sort of the good cops in the good cop bad cop routine of American politics, and that is the primary dynamic of American politics, and that they function as a containment vessel. This good cop role is more specifically that they lure people in to like them, to believe in them, to idolize them. And there are people who idolize Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and others. Maybe they would reject the idea that they idolize them, but there is an uncritical acceptance of those people by large parts of the Democratic base that has supported them through the last 20 years or so of U.S. politics. And anyway, and they haven't staged their own revolution in terms of deciding they want to throw them out, and they've kept them on as the leadership. I mean, not everybody, and there's the Sanders movement, which I've been involved in, and other progressives like the Justice Democrats, so forth and so on, that are insurgents, sort of within that, the base of the Democratic Party. Sometimes they act as a loyal opposition or even loyal non-opposition, and there are some problems with that, and which I can go into more in future videos. But anyway, so Biden's appeal, as now in the case of with Trump, so there was the great enthusiasm for Trump as an opponent by Hillary Clinton first, and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and then others, is that they thought that they had a good foil for their nice guy routine, for their we are good people, which is part of the bait or the lure to be this containment vessel for for discontent from the left-leaning parts of the American electorate. I'm sorry, and they so to create this bait, they need to appear to be nicer than the Republicans as people, and so this niceness involves sometimes displays of empathy, okay, that are or just of humanity. So Biden is specialized in particular in reference to his son Beau, the passing of his son Beau, and so he's experienced a number of personal tragedies, and he uses them politically, and I have no doubt he has sincere feelings about those political tragedies, but he deploys them, or they are deployed by maybe his spouse, maybe his political handlers, but he assents to their deployment to make him appear to be a nicer guy than he really is in terms of his in terms of us, the voters. So he's nice to he appears nice, but then he does unnice things, like he ignores, for instance, student debt relief. He could easily do that. He's decided that he doesn't want to do that, essentially, or he's only going to be need to be pressured to do that if he does it, and it's going to be only as a last resort. And he's going to be doing it unwillingly, and that's something that's within his hands. The Congress doesn't have anything to say about that, or very little to say about that. So anyway, the so that's sort of the acid test of his fundamental commitments and fundamental sense of empathy and sense of and I am what I'm calling ethical weaknesses. So ethics is in part based on empathy. It's not just simply some kind of rule following of this is good, this is evil, sort of like a mechanical thing. You need to be an ethical person. You need to feel for other people in some way or another, and then apply rules and laws, or change rules and laws if need be, to realize the good. So it's ethics is the pursuit of the good and the minimization of the bad. Okay, so and it's something that people do, especially in politics. It's the fundamental basis of our politics, or is in ethics, and it is the realm in which ethics can be realized or it can be stymied and corrupted, par excellence. I mean, there are other realms where that can happen, but it is the macro, certainly in terms of macro ethics, the big ethical picture. Like, how are we as a people? How good are we as a people? How good are we as a society overall? What is the sort of the baseline under bottom line of being a good person, or being a good group of people? That's established there. I mean, then you have people who excel in some way or another and are particularly ethically minded and particularly responsive to other people. But there's also just sort of there's a floor, so to speak, in that partly is instituted by government programs and government policy, and that are effective. In other words, that are actually realizing the good to some degree and minimizing the bad, or protecting people from the bad in some form or other. And so what the neoliberal game of that which is an individualistic game, which Bill Clinton and Joe Biden and others have played, and they didn't invent that game. It pre-existed the neoliberalism. It pre-existed this particular trend in politics and political economy that we call neoliberalism. But anyway, the idea is that you could display, the quote unquote "I feel your pain," which is from Bill Clinton, but at the same time do things that increase the pain of the American people, while still being the front man, so to speak, of the policies that increase your pain. Okay, and or that fail to do the good. Okay, that delay, and in the case of climate change, that delay to the indefinite future doing the good in terms of cutting our fossil fuel use and emissions and so forth and so on. And and there are neoliberal policies like cap and trade and so forth and so on, which were instituted not only by the United States and by our political elites, but by other political elites as well, and by the fossil fuel industries. Essentially, was a game of delaying effective action and to cut emissions. And so, and we are this summer living a lot of the consequences of that. So, and we'll continue to live it for the next long period of time. So, anyway, but Biden represents then a particular type. So, in the 2020 election, one of the it's unclear why Biden wanted to run in 2020. He doesn't seem to be particularly enthusiastic about running, or he doesn't seem to be particularly excited about it. I mean, at least in the way he acts, in terms of his taking the necessary steps to create a program, create a policy program, and then implement it. He has failed in different forms, and he's appeared to be either a deer in the headlights or simply someone who's lied, okay, about his intentions, and has just put these things out as smoke screens for another political program, a political program of do nothingism, which is something that has been said. He was overheard saying to donors during 2020 that nothing fundamentally would change, and it appears as though that's what he realized. So, but he doesn't appear to be a particularly bright guy, so he didn't really, I think it all through. Either that, or he is appealing to our not bright and our not brightness, our stupidity, and that of the press, and the PR job the press does for politicians like him in protecting him from the consequences of that idea that he could sort of play along with people and tease people and then just sort of fail to do anything. So what I'm trying to tease out here is that he, in terms of his appeal in the 2020 election, he was, and this was the major theme of his campaign, was like, I am a good guy, I'm a good man. The other guy on the other side is a bad man. Now, what bad man was not so clear. Fascist, it was sort of implied that Trump was a fascist, but it was never went into details about what that meant. It just, authoritarian maybe is probably the sort of cover word, more respectable sounding word for what Trump is. But he used all kinds of words that weren't motivating, let's say, a struggle from the point of view of the people, his supporters, but more just saying, look, you have the choice between these two flavors of ice cream, and I'm the better flavor of ice cream. And part of that has to do with my soulfulness, my great empathy with people, and look at my wife, for instance, who is a lifelong educator, and so Jill Biden, and so there was this kind of sense of, and this was part of the major appeal of, unfortunately, of him to the base, and this was cut off from, in a way, or this part of this appeal was cut off from actually a program. I mean, he mentioned things about wanting to do X, Y, and Z. He sort of farmed this off to the sort of unity commission between him and Bernie Sanders' campaign, which became the Build Back Better plan. But he never, as we see, certainly in his actions, never really fully invested in that. And it was like other people were more really interested in Build Back Better than he was. He wasn't. So, and it's a little embarrassing now to have seen progressives sort of say, well, this is Joe Biden's agenda. Well, it was an agenda that Joe Biden floated as a way to get you progressives on board to not fight against him during the campaign and afterward at the same time. But it's not really something he really cared much about. And he was sort of like something like, I'll let them believe in this thing that I don't really believe in. And that's the way it appears now. I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020, but there were people who sort of kind of got it. But still, the idea that this was, we're supporting Biden's agenda, was something that was used as a way to try to press, and it could have been more effective. And also fundamentally, the separating out of the bipartisan infrastructure bill from the Build Back Better, that was the key sign from Biden that was recognized by progressives in Congress, the real progressives, the squad, as him saying, look, I'm not really interested in Build Back Better. And so if they had wanted to hold him, or if other congressional people would have wanted to hold him to his quote unquote agenda, they would have demanded that they keep those two bills together. But he was obviously not interested in that. And his love of Republicans, his talk about Mitch McConnell as his friend, these are all people who are, from the perspective of liberals and from the morality that is, or ethics that's based on, left of center principles like justice and equality and protection, government as a protection for people against the worst outcomes in either the human world or also humans in their interface with nature, that he's a bad man. In other words, that he's an evil character, McConnell. But Joe Biden's consorting with him confuses the picture to some degree, and people don't understand until now, or some didn't understand. And I think that it's dawning on many people that, hey, wait a minute, we were sold a bill of goods. And so this is, in some way, this bill of goods is this good cop sales job, this bait, this lure into the containment vessel that the Democrats do to keep popular discontent at a low level, a low enough level for the corporate elite, including themselves and Republicans and donor class and so forth and so on, to get things done that they want done. Okay, and that lure, it becomes the substance of politics in people, but it's a lure. It's simply it's a veil over. And so, getting back to the issue of ethics and empathy and so forth and so on, what an effective, I think maybe this is helpful, maybe it's not for you, but what an effective morality is that you unite empathy with logic, with ethics, which includes a component of logic to it. So you're using your mind, and you're trying to look at data and information and try to arrive at a good or better outcome for people, either by minimizing harms and maximizing goods, things that are good. And so and that goes for a whole bunch of different things. So you could put that lens over a whole number of different things, like abortion rights and climate change and so forth and so on. And you'll see that the progressive position is we are going to use our empathy for other people and their harm, their experience of harm, or their desires for good, and we're going to use our minds to logically come up with a solution. Okay, now this sounds very basic and all, but I feel like people, if you understand this on a high level, abstract level, you can then more quickly create an effective program and talk to people more effectively about what the differences of opinion are between you and either corrupt democratic elites or centrist elites of various kinds, and also the right wing and people in the right wing who are living in a world of delusional propaganda mostly, and do not understand facts. They're not in touch with the factual understanding of the world currently, given the propaganda apparatus has been erected around the right wing. So Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, and also parts of the quote-unquote mainstream media, the local TV stations, and also even parts of the supposed liberal media that treat the misinformation, disinformation apparatus of the right wing as something that's not so critically important to combat. But anyway, so the idea, so in the neoliberal / centrist world, ethics can be simply a personological thing based on your perception of someone's empathy as a person, disjunct from actual effective logical plans to do something about the thing that you're sympathizing or empathizing with, that people are experiencing. That there's an interrupt, okay, and some of this is I think it's about a power. It's about a fear of power and using power, because you have to use power to take those effective steps to remedy the thing. So you really have to fight politically against entrenched interests. There are entrenched interests that love the idea of a certain kind of ethics as being just sort of a floatable, fungible personality trait of some person, and not an effective program of that you can share with other people logically and discuss logically, and have a democratic process where you discuss logically what we need to do to deal with our issue, our problems. And so the fundamental divide then between the corporate, let's say we can call them reactionary centrists, we can call them, there's some of them right of center, slightly left of center, but mostly right around the center and then to the right. And some of them are in the media, so they're not really partisan, and some of them are political operatives, and others are just people out in the world who are supporters of this constellation, is that they don't want to be compelled by their ethical concerns to do things that are dangerous to them, that endanger their comforts, endanger the power dynamics of our current society. They do not want to take the steps that will be potentially be risk-taking for them. They want to follow the path of least resistance or lower resistance. I mean, they want to emote about something that they don't like, but then they don't want to take those emotions and make an effective program to deal with it, which involves logical thinking, involves steps and strategic thinking, and so forth and so on. And so, and interrupting that connection between your feelings of horror, your feelings of fear, and action is what is part of the task of some people like Joe Biden, is to keep that separate, is that they want to keep you emoting but not acting effectively. And so, and this is where they're undermining the political prospects of Democrats and the welfare of the American people, because they are, as my title suggests, so they want to keep people in this area of emoting. As similar, the right wing wants to keep people emoting too, and also out of the game of actual political, exerting political power, except in the case of the right wing, being the shock troops, like gun-toting shock troops, the stochastic terrorists for the far right to kill people, to create chaos, that they're fine for people using their emotions to do that. So that is, in that sense, they differ from, but the Democrats, they just want to keep people in their sort of bubbles and just either donating to the Democratic Party, voting for the Democratic Party elite without thinking about who they're voting for exactly. So it's a very bleak picture in a way, and it's a very saddening picture, and it's a very scary picture. And what makes it scarier is that the alternative is worse. In other words, the Republicans are definitely worse. So we're talking about bad and worse. So I'm describing bad right now. I'm not describing worse. There are other videos when I talk about worse. Okay, but anyway, I just wanted to focus on the idea of connecting your feelings of disgust or anger and so forth and so on to effective actions, to the organizations that are taking effective action, like, for instance, Represent Us, okay, it's about reform of the electoral system, or Fair Vote, okay, which is about creating, getting rid of first past the post voting. So this is actually a nonpartisan issue. It's not some, both Democrats and Republicans should be supporting these things. Getting rid of the Electoral College and maybe even getting rid of the Senate and radically reforming the Supreme Court. which is coming mostly from Democrats in that area. So, but so there's a whole series of things that we could be doing, but we're not. I mean, and the pandemic hasn't helped us organize, and it makes us fear contacting other people and so forth and so on, and staying in the same room as other people, and it's still going on, unfortunately. But anyway, I think that if we can clarify some of these basic issues, we can hit the ground running, and also try to get the best outcome for this in this year in terms of getting the best team on the field to fight against the fascist threat from the GOP, and also to get Joe Biden out of the in other words, to primary him, so we have a better Democratic alternative. I prefer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in that, because I think she represents the whole picture that we need for the change we need in our country. I don't know if she's ready to take that on. If she wants to take that on, but I think she could have a galvanizing effect if she ran, even if she doesn't win the primary, that is. But anyway, I just wanted to, this is kind of an overview. There's a lot of things been happening. I could attach many different actions of Joe Biden recently to this idea of him having ethical weakness and undermining democratic politics. His actions in Saudi Arabia, his actions in Israel. It's pretty much, it's a consistent picture of moral failure, okay? And that moral failure undermines the identity of a Democratic Party, and therefore the Democratic prospects, and the prospects of that they could help, that government can help, that the Democratic Party represents the faint possibility that government could help improve the welfare of the American people through better public policy and better political action. So anyway, I'll stop here. Please share your thoughts about this topic in the comments. Please like the video if you liked it, and please subscribe to Politics 2100, and I will see you in the next video.